Hey, we want to welcome everybody who's watching online, as well as those of you that are gathered there in Somerset. Hey, Creekers, let's welcome everybody that's on the other end of that camera. Today, we are in the fifth part of this series called Sweet Spot, and if you haven't been here, or you missed any of the weeks, or you haven't been here altogether, maybe this is your first time here at the Creek, you can go to thecreekchurch.com, and there on that website, or you can download the app if you don't already have it on your smartphone or your mobile device. You can put the app on there, or you can just go to the website, and you're going to find all the content of this series and all the other series there as well. What you may not know is that also there, you're going to find not only all the content of the message, whether it's the video or the audio, you're also going to find an overview of the message that's on a PDF, also discussion questions that most of our discipleship groups, they use to talk about in group together. You're also going to find some application points, some things that you can think about on through the week. And then also, if you like to memorize things, there's also a segment in there that gives you a verse for the week to memorize that. And then on top of that, if you're a note taker, and I hope that you do, because, hey, a dull pencil is better than a sharp mind any day of the week, right? Some of you are like, what? Trust me, it's true. But if you're not a note taker, I hope that you are, or you try to be, become one. All the notes that we put up here on the plasma, they are there on the website and the app as well. So you can just catch up with everything there. But if you are a guest, we've been talking about how everybody, whether they believe so or not, everybody has been created by God, for God, on purpose, and for a purpose. That means that every single person has been given by their Creator natural gifts. Now, that's a good thing because every person has value, every person has dignity. But in this particular series, we're talking to Christ followers. Because if you are a Christ follower, we believe that when you became a follower of Jesus and you placed your faith in Jesus, that you received a spiritual gift. And that's what we're calling the sweet spot in this series. It's the lane that God intended you to run in. So we've been talking about all these different gifts, but today we're going to talk about the gift of administration, or what we may refer to as the ruler, the organizer, or the leader, all right? Many of you, if not most of you, have already taken the spiritual gift assessment, and again, that's still online. You can find that easily on our Facebook page or on our website, creekchurch.com/gifts. If you haven't taken it, you can go there. You can find out about your giftedness. But what we're talking about today, this gift of administration. Matter of fact, let me just see who you are there in Somerset as well, and right here in the room in London. How many tested your top score? Your top score was the gift of administration. Let's just see your hands. A few. Okay, a few of us. Let me see how many of you had it finish in the top 3. Okay, there we go. We've got a lot of folks who have some capacity there to develop this ability. Now, here's the thing about the gift of administration, or the ruler, or the organizer, or the leader. There's lots of different names that this gift goes by. Some people call it the gift of leadership. Some folks just call it the gift of administration. So you'll hear me use those terms interchangeably throughout the message. But when you look at our entire church, as far as our scorecard goes, as how we tested in these particular gifts, this is an area where we have a lot of capacity to flex. This is an area where we have a lot of ability to grow in our capacity to lead others. So this is really, really good news. This is not our strongest area. It's not our second strongest area, but it is one of our strongest areas. And in a lot of churches, that's just not the case. So it is a really, really good thing that so many of you have the capacity to develop the ability to lead others, to organize, to govern over others, to organize people. So this is really, really good news for all of us. Because leaders are a gift to the church. Last week, we talked about how important it is to serve, and servers are a gift to the church, but those who serve need leaders. So leaders also are a gift to the church, and we need those who lead, and then we also need those who follow. Now, if leadership or this gift of administration, if it doesn't fall anywhere in your strongest categories, and you're wondering, well, what is the benefit of me being here today? Here's the thing. All of us have to lead somebody. Every single one of us have a sphere of influence where we are exercising leadership. If you're a parent, guess what? You are a leader. If you're a grandparent, you are a leader. So we're all needing to grow in our capacity to lead. So we're going to talk about leadership, but specifically, we're going to talk about it in the context of those who have this gift. But even if you don't have this gift, that's okay, because there's something that you can learn about becoming a better leader. Now, when you think about leadership, I hope that we all think, in the same lines or down the same lane. But here's what I want us to think about when we think about leadership. Leadership is leveraging influence. You know, John Maxwell, he made that famous years and years ago that leadership is influence. Leadership is leveraging influence to move people from where they are to where they should be and where they could be. That's really the essence of leadership. That's the essence of being a parent. That's the essence of being a boss at work. This is the essence of leading people. That you want to take people from where they are to where they could be and to where they should be. And this is why this is a great opportunity to flex your muscle if you are a leader, if you're an administrator, because you get this privilege, you get this opportunity, you have this responsibility to take people that God loves, where they are currently to where they should be and to where they need to be, and even where most of them want to be. But in order to be where they need to be and should be and could be, do you know what they need? They need a leader. And they need you to step up to the plate and lead, because leaders lead. That's what it's about when it comes to being a leader. You leverage your influence to take people, the people that you work with, the son, the daughter that you have, the grandchildren that you have. You leverage your influence and you take them from where they currently are to where they need to be, where they could be, where they should be. So this is what we're going to think about when we think about leadership. Now, in the gift of leadership or the gift of administration, here's what you need to know about these folks. They are gifted to work with others. You have to work with people, all right? This is a people-centered gift. Not all of the gifts are people-centered or people-driven, but this particular gift, it's people-centered, it's people-driven most of the time. They are gifted to work with others, so ultimately they can work through others. Now let me tell you the thing about leaders. Leaders, they don't necessarily get a lot done themselves, but they get a heck of a lot done through other people. That's what leaders do. Leaders don't necessarily do a lot themselves. They do a lot themselves, but if you're looking for them to be doing all the tasks, chances are you're not going to find the person with the gift of administration doing all the tasks. What you will find is that the person who has this gift of leadership, this gift of organizing, this person will enlist other people to do what needs to be done, because they love to work with people so that they can work through people. Now, for those of you who have this gift of administration, or you test strong in this gift, or those of you who live with somebody or you know someone so that you can understand them better, there's really two types of administrators. Those who are at best at organizing programs, and those who are at best at organizing people. And they're normally not the same person. Some people who are administrative, they are very good at organizing events and programs. These are the people that are keenly aware of details. They are detail people. Then there are administrators who they are more about organizing people. And these folks typically, there's always exceptions to the rules, but these folks are typically, they're vaguely aware of details. Details avoid them. Details evade them. Now, this was my second strength. This was my second area in the test. And I am certainly, like I'm not telling you anything you don't already know for those of you who know me, I am not the one who's keenly aware of details. Now, those of us who may have this capacity in administration, we need desperately those people who are good at organizing events and programs, because as we try to organize people, we miss some really important things that they're going to catch, and that they're going to be able to get things done in a way that we can't get things done. So this is something that hits in lots of different places, because you may be the program-centered administrator, or you may be the people-centered administrator. So let's talk about some of the characteristics of this person so that you know a little bit about them. They're dreamers. They're big picture folks. They're long-term thinkers. These are the people who have a vision and they want to cast it, and then they want to invite people, let's go do something together. This is something that we need to do. This is the state of the affairs. This is the lay of the land. This is our problem. This is our opportunity. And this is how you can help. And they're all about the big picture, because they're always thinking about the future. They're always thinking about how to get from point A to point B. These folks are all about progress. So they are dreamers. They are big picture thinkers, and they are long-term thinkers. Now, they may have a lot of stuff going on in the short term, but I guarantee you, people who have this gift, they are going to be thinking constantly in some shape, form, or fashion about the long term and about where it is that we are supposed to be and how we're supposed to get there. So these are dreamers, big picture thinkers. They're goal-oriented. They love goals. They love short-term goals. They love big goals. Let me tell you about the person who has the gift of administration that's more program-centered. They take big goals and they condense them into smaller goals that can be achieved in order to accomplish the large goal, right? Those of us who are people-centered, we have no concept of this. This makes no sense to us. We have one big goal. And the fact that we need other goals to get there, it kind of is not really something we're interested in. And so you're going to find that maybe you navigate or migrate towards one or the other, but these folks are goal-oriented. They always have goals. They're disciplined. They get up, they get things done, they work hard, they're highly motivated. I mean, you don't have to try to get these folks started. They are self-starters. By and large, again, there are always exceptions to the rules, and you may already be thinking, well, I tested strong in this, but none of these sound like me. Again, keep in mind, this is not necessarily about an ability you have today. This is about the capacity that God has given you to develop this ability. And so they're highly motivated, and because of it, they're very motivating. They can motivate people to do things because remember, they're working with people to work through people. These folks are competitive. They want to win. They don't like to lose. Typically, by and large, for some reason, they're drawn to sports because of their competitive nature. And it doesn't matter whether they're playing checkers or chess or basketball or football or rook. It doesn't matter if they're playing to win. And it doesn't matter if it's just playing in fun and there's nothing on the line and there's no trophy and it's not organized. If there is the capacity at the end of whatever's being done for someone to be deemed the winner, these people want to be the winner. And they may put on a smile and say, it was a lot of fun. If they lost, it was no fun. It was no fun. They're lying to you. These are the parents, they don't let their sorry kids win. There's none of that, oh, you beat me. No. It's like, boom! Come back when you get out of kindergarten, chump! Right? People like this, they're not in for letting anybody win because they're just so highly competitive. They're perfectionists. They want it done right, and typically that is code for their way. Those of you are recognizing this in your spouse. I hear that laughter. I know that tone, right? I mean, you see this. When they want things done perfectly, in their mind, I'm just trying to help you understand these people. Remember, I'm not one of them. It was like second or something. But these people, when they think of a way to do something, the way to do it is their way. And they're already convinced in their mind that their way is the best way. And when they think of perfectionism, they're thinking, this is the way you need to do it. And if you do it this way, then it's good. And you say, what happens if it doesn't work out? Well, it wasn't God's will. It certainly wasn't the plan that was the problem, right? Okay. So you're understanding how this works now, right? They love to delegate. Again, administrators, they may not appear busy. You may walk by their office and it seems like, what are they doing? Do they ever do anything? Of course they're doing something. They're doing a lot of things, except they're doing it through other people. And they're having little meetings to say, tell me what you did that I told you to do, and my perfect plan that I had to do it, right? I mean, this is just how they do it. They just delegate. They love charts, lists, graphs, anything that can organize information and tell a story. These folks love it. I mean, they just love it. I mean, you'll find an administrator, typically not the people-centered, administrator. I love charts and graphs. I just can't make them. But I love when someone else makes them for me. It's awesome. It's wonderful, but I don't even know how to make them. But you'll find a person who's program-centered, and that's how they administrate. You're going to find that they have got a worksheet, PDF, graph, spreadsheet, for anything and everything, because this is just how they love to do what they do. They love their way now, right now. It's my way right now, not tomorrow, but let's do it right now. They're a workaholic. These are the folks you can usually see that get to work early, and they're one of the last ones to leave. Administrators, let me tell you something that drives people crazy about administrators, and you may not know this. And if you work for an administrator, you're welcome. All right? If you work for an administrator, you are welcome for this. Administrators sit in their office, and if the office hours end at 4:30 in your office, and the administrator is in their office at 4:30 and they see all the shadows, scurrying out, going to the car, they're thinking, what the heck are these people doing? How can they leave every day at the same time? Because the administrator plans to stay 30 minutes late whether they have anything to do or not. Because they're just a workaholic, and they think things are better with me here. So if you work for an administrator, let me tell you what's happening. When they see you leaving at the same time every day that you're supposed to leave, they're thinking, I need to give them more to do, because surely they can't leave on time every single day. So again, you're welcome for that, all right? These folks, they hide emotions. They can't afford to upset a lot of folks because these folks, they're carrying out things for them. So they're very diplomatic. They're good at coalition building. They hide their emotions. They're good poker players because they can be ticked off. That's great. Well, let's talk about that later, can we? Tomorrow. Yeah, let's both pray about that. Fast a little. Okay? Great. Yeah, I mean, they can't afford to give their emotions away a lot. They're very good at hiding their emotions because a leader doesn't always have the luxury. Matter of fact, the Bible talks about that a fool always expresses whatever they're feeling. So this applies for everybody, but leaders especially know they don't have the luxury of letting their emotions show. Every time they're angry, they can't let everybody know they're angry. Every time they're happy, they can't let everybody know they're happy. A leader's always thinking long term, and they're always managing in the moment, and sometimes that means that they can't let people know exactly how they feel. They get bored with trivial things. If you walk into an administrator's office, you talk to this person at the church, and you start telling them about the 15-point plan, you'll be lucky to get to point number 3. Because they just want to know, what's this going to help us do, right? They get bored with the trivial. They tend to be dominant, not passive. They get involved. This is the person, when Paul talks about this particular gift in Romans 12, he uses a term that was used of someone who would put their hands on the steering wheel of a ship. This is the person who, when the storm hit, or when the ship was trying to get into harbor and there was rocks and shoals and there were all of these, all of this high pressure navigating that needed to be done, it was this person who wanted their hands on the wheel. This is just how this person's wired. In a sporting event, for those of you who like sports, in a sporting event, this is the player that if there's 2 points, if they're 2 points down and there's a 3-pointer that's designed to win the game, this person wants to take the shot. Because there's usually, I've played sports all my life, there's usually, the person, maybe 2 people, that if the game's on the line, they want the ball in their hand because they just believe, hey, if the game's on the line, it is best on the line in my hands. And then there's some folks, when the game's on the line, they're like, whoo, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do whatever I need to do. But I don't really want the ball. These folks are dominant. They want their hands on the wheel because this is just how they are. And they're the center stage type. They're not backstage kind of folks most of the time. Again, there's exceptions to the rules. And these folks handle pressure very, very, very well. Sometimes, a lot of time, the administrator comes alive under pressure. The more pressure that exists, the better they perform. Which for some of you, that seems like a miserable, miserable experience. That seems like a little bit of hell on earth because you don't like stress, you don't like tension, you don't like deadlines. But a lot of times administrators end up being proactively procrastinating. They know that it's coming, but they choose to wait. Because when they know they choose to wait, they feel as though they're better in the midnight hour. They feel like they're better when everything's on the line. So this is very interesting about these people. And again, this is God's thumbprint on your life. This is how God designed you. There's nothing wrong with it. It's good. Now, it can have uses and it can have misuses. So that's what we're going to talk about, some of the potential dangers of the ruler. This is some things that can go wrong. They appear to be organized by everybody. Everybody that sees this person says, man, they are so organized. But let me tell you the secret. The administrator secretly feels chaotic. They secretly feel as though anything could go wrong. This whole thing, Jenga's it's just pull one out and the whole thing's gonna fall. This could go bad at any moment. This is terrible. This is how these people think. They appear to be organized. They've got a phone, they've got a calendar, they've got all their email flagged, and they've got folders, and they've got all of these things. But internally, one of the things that can frustrate and one of the things that can bring fatigue to administrators is because inside they feel so very chaotic, even though to everybody else they seem calm, collected, and organized. These folks, again, specifically those who are people-centered, they can miss important details. Very important details because they weren't paying attention. They weren't listening. They wouldn't stay focused through the report. And then they miss something really, really important. This is just one of the dangers because they're thinking big picture. Sometimes they forget that the details extremely, extremely significant. I've heard this. I have no idea if this is true or not. But I have heard that they hate admitting wrong. That may be a little true. Because remember, they've researched, they've thought about this. They've been thinking about this longer than anybody else has been thinking about it. Everybody else has been ordering food. But they've been thinking about this big plan for a lot of years. They've been thinking about it for months. They've been thinking about it for weeks. And they're so convinced, and even if something goes awry, they're still convinced. It wasn't me. That wasn't my fault. You just didn't do it right. You didn't do what I told you, right? They just hate to admit that they're wrong. How many of you, whether you're an administrator or not, because I find that this is a trait that reaches multiple people. How many of you would just be honest enough to go ahead and confess in the presence of all of these people there in Somerset, right here in London? How many of you would just admit you're one of those folks that hate to admit you're wrong? The fact that we have unity in this church is a miracle of God. It is a miracle of God. Thank God Jesus said love God and love people. I mean, we'd all be sunk. You know, a lot of churches, they don't take that thing seriously about loving each other. We decided to take it seriously, and it helps because you know what? Love covers a multitude of wrong. The prophets all said sin. Did you hear that? That was the prophets right there. Covers a multitude of sin, brother. Sin, I say. Bless God. Hallelujah. Encouragers, it covers wrong, right? Okay. I tell you the truth, people. And it's only when it comes out like that, you're like, that's true. I believe that. So, I don't even know where I was at. Hate admits that they're wrong. So that's a lesson for all of us. They're short when hurried. If they're going somewhere, and they're usually going somewhere, if they've got something to do, and they've almost always got something to do, they can come across. So, I am horrible with this. And I have tried to work on this. This is something I've been called out on, I think, twice, and rightfully so both times. And normally it's on Sundays because there's just so much going on, and you know, you come in here and everything comes off, you know, just flawlessly, and the singers sound great, and the music sounds great, and the lights all work, and everything's exactly the way it's supposed to be. What you need to know is about every Sunday at 8:30, we all feel like, oh my God, what's gone? Has the devil been in here playing around this week? Right? I mean, here, let me tell you about the church world. You go on vacation, you go away on vacation. 7 days, 10 days, and you come back and guess what? Your TV still works. Your DVD still works. Your surround sound still works. We leave here for 6 days. And we can come back in and it's like, who's been messing with our stuff? Like nothing's working. And of course, you know, the administrators, they always have a plan to make things right. But in the moment, they feel a little chaos. And these folks, when they're walking around with so much to do, sometimes somebody can say, hey, I got a prayer request. And they're like, okay. No, not really. Well, sometimes. And it's like a prayer. Jesus already knows about it, bro. Matthew 6. He knows before we even ask. Too much honesty? Maybe. That's why I've surrounded myself with people who have the gift of mercy. And ministry. Okay, so anyway. So they can get short when hurried, right? I mean, I make fun of it, but it's not an attractive thing. It's not a good thing. It's not something that really represents what Jesus did. I mean, if anybody had stuff to do, can we agree that Jesus had stuff to do? And Jesus had time for people because he knew that people were the point. These folks can be viewed as cold because they say things like they just said, and they're like, people don't care. And then they can come across pushy, like, no, you need to do this. No, like, go, get it done right now. They can seem too busy for folks, and they're not good with names, right? That's tough. And that bothers them. It's like, okay, if you're here this morning, I'm sorry, this didn't even make my notes, but this is all just in the moment. I was at Kroger because most of the ministry I do is at Kroger, and so, anyway, there's so many things are in my head right now. So I was in the produce section at Kroger, And God does a lot of work in the produce section at Kroger. I'll just tell you, we've had some amazing things happen there. But I was there one day and talking to this sweet lady that attends our church, and now I'm just not shy at all about asking names. And I assume that if you look at me for longer than 3 seconds in the store and it's kind of that weird eye contact, I just assume we go to church together. And I'm like, hey, see you Sunday. And sometimes they look at me even stranger, but I was there talking to a lady one day, and we were talking, and she was telling me about some things, and I said, okay. She goes, I'd really love for you to pray for me, at some point. And normally when people ask, I try to just pray right then. And I said, hey, will you tell me your name? And then she told me her name. And then, so help me Jesus, in the prayer, I called her by the wrong name. And then when I ended, she goes, but my name is Sue. Well, Cindy really needed a prayer. I'll tell you, I don't know who Cindy is and I don't know where she is, but God bless her. Right now, Lord, move on Cindy's behalf. So they're not good with names. And sometimes when they misuse their gift, they can manipulate and use folks because they're trying to get things done. And they step out of walking in the Spirit and they walk in the flesh. Now, if anybody is a portrait of this gift in Scripture, it was a man by the name of Nehemiah. Nehemiah, the gift of organizing, the gift of leading, the gift of governing over other people. This person, Nehemiah, who was a cupbearer to the king, King Artaxerxes. He was a cupbearer to the king over there in Persia and Babylon and all that. In 586, just to give you a brief little history, in 586, the Babylonians came in and for the third time invaded Jerusalem and destroyed everything. They destroyed the temple, they destroyed the city, and they destroyed the walls around the city. But after about 70 years, just as God had promised and predicted, the people who were carried off into slavery, carried off into captivity by the Babylonians, and now all these Israelites are living over in a foreign land because they're prisoners of war, so to speak. After about 70 years, God allows them to come back to the land. They're going to come back in 3 major waves led by 3 different leaders. The first, Zerubbabel, he would lead a wave back and they're going to start rebuilding the temple. And then Ezra is going to come back and he's going to lead them in revival. And then the third person who's going to lead a mass amount of people out of the foreign land back to Israel is this guy by the name of Nehemiah. And he is a royal cupbearer, which is a high position. This was a very, very influential spot because his job was to drink the cup before the king would drink from the cup to make sure that nobody had tried to assassinate the king. Now, how would you like to have that job? So he would test the food and he would test the cup before the king would eat the food or drink the drink. And so he's in a very influential post. He's a cupbearer. Because listen to me, leaders, listen to me. Where you currently are, God has you there on purpose. God had Nehemiah in the court of the king on purpose. God had Joseph in Egypt on purpose. God had Daniel in Babylon on purpose. Because God puts leaders where people, wait for it, need to be led. So he's taking care of the king. And all of a sudden, he hears that the walls are still torn down back in the land. He hears that there's chaos. And he, it just really bothers him. Let's just pick it up in Nehemiah chapter 1. Let me give you this. It says, they said to me, he's talking to some friends, and here's what his friends say to him. They said to me, those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. And Nehemiah said, when I heard these things, I sat down and I wept. And this is a moment when something comes alive in Nehemiah, this leader's heart, because God will confront a leader with something that's wrong or something that needs to be fixed or something that needs to be better, and God will confront a leader with that, and something will come alive inside of a leader's heart. Not everybody will feel the way the leader feels, because Nehemiah, he hears this news, he hears about this problem, and he sat down and he wept because he was greatly heartbroken about it. Which, there's a little key to all of this, that a leader's present burden has the power to shift the future. If you're an administrator, if you're a leader, if you're one of these folks that have this gift given to you by God, chances are you carry around certain burdens, things that need to be done, things that could be done, things that should be done. And these are things that just weigh on your heart. These are things you pray about. These are things that you think about. These are things that keep you up at night. These are the things that you think about when you get up in the morning. Your present burden, if you're a leader, your present burden has the potential to shift the future, because this is what's happening in Nehemiah's heart right now. There's a burden that comes alive inside of Nehemiah's heart. And when this burden comes alive, what Nehemiah has no capacity to understand at this moment is that it is already beginning to shift the future. It's already beginning to change the future. He doesn't even know that yet, but that's what leaders are for. When God gives leaders burdens, when God confronts a leader with something that can be done, something that should be done, something that people want done, it begins to shift the future. So he begins to pray, and he begins to ask God to give him success. He begins to ask God to move on his behalf, because he wants to go back and he wants to rebuild these walls. He's heard about a problem. The walls have been torn down and they're still torn down. And the city and the land is in disgrace. And so he begins to pray about this and ask God to give him success, because he knows what's going to have to be done. He's going to have to go to the king. He's going to have to go to the king, and the king is going to have to release him. The king is probably going to have to help him. And so he prays that God will give him favor with the king, because if he goes in looking all sad before the king, it was a capital offense in Nehemiah's day. So he's going to have to walk a tightrope. He's going to have to hide his emotions like administrators have to do, and he's not going to have to let everybody know around him exactly how he feels. And so when he goes into the king, and the king notices, hey, there's something not right. There's something wrong. And then Nehemiah tells the king, this is what's wrong. My people are in disgrace, and the walls are still torn down. I can't believe it. The walls are still torn down. And then the king said to me, Nehemiah said, well, what is it that you want? And I love this. This is one of my favorite verses in all of the book of Nehemiah. Because let me tell you about leaders. They pray for this kind of question. They pray for someone who has the means, who has the resources, who has the depth or the capacity or the ability to say, what do you want? And let me tell you about a leader. Let me tell you about an administrator. They already know the answer to that question, because they've been thinking about it. Nehemiah had been praying about it. He'd been thinking about it. He'd asked God for favor. And when the king asked him, what do you want? Nehemiah said, well, I'm glad you asked, because here's what I need. And the king gave him exactly what he needed. We're talking about a pagan king. We're not even talking about a king who was a Jew. We're not even talking about a king who believed in Nehemiah's God. And this is the power of leadership. The power of leadership says, hey, God can use a man or a woman to lead people that may not even be a follower of God, to help fund or resource a move of God. That's a good word. That's a good word. That's the power of leadership. What do you want? Well, let me tell you what I need. Let me tell you what I want. This is what needs to happen. And then Nehemiah goes on and says, and because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my request. And so Nehemiah, he leaves the courtroom of the king, and he goes back to Jerusalem. What does he know about building a wall? He doesn't have to know anything about building a wall. He's a leader. He'll find someone who knows something about building a wall. See, leaders think they have to know something about everything, but leaders don't have to know something about everything. Leaders just have to be able to find people who know something about what they need to know. That's what leaders do. Leaders are able to identify the experts in a particular field, and then they find what those people can do and what those people think need to be done. So he goes back, and what does he do? He invites people, because you know what leaders need? People. Other people. Invites other people to say, hey, take a ride with me. Let's go look at some things. And then this is what he says to them. He says, then I said to them, because he's recruited some folks. If Nehemiah had just gone back and tried to be a lone ranger, it wouldn't have been very effective. Then I said to them, you see the trouble we're in? And I love this. We. This is not about Nehemiah. This is about we. Do you see the problem that we are in? Jerusalem, look at it. Look at him casting vision. Look at him pointing to the problem. Jerusalem lies in ruins. Look at this. Take a look. Look at this. And its gates have been burned with fire. Now, this is incredible. So he says, look at this. This is wrong. And then he invites them in. He says, come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. That's a leader. Here's what's wrong. Come on, let's fix it. Leaders point out the problem, then invite others to become part of the solution. That's what leaders do. Let me tell you what's part of the problem in our American political system. Today, you can be a politician and only point to problems. But that's not what leaders do. Leaders just don't point out problems. Leaders actually invite you to get involved and become part of the solution, because true leaders, they have a plan. True leaders, they've been thinking about this. True leaders, they know what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So come on, let's build this wall. Leaders imagine the future and then invite others to help create it. Let me tell you what Nehemiah saw: a built wall. Everybody else saw a torn down wall. Let me tell you what Nehemiah saw: a built wall. He saw a nice wall. He saw a big wall. He saw a gorgeous wall. And he says, we're going to go build this. And everybody's looking at a pile of ruins. But the leader says, we're going to build this. And this is what's going to happen. We're going to become part of the solution. Then, when they start building, because if you're going to be a leader, you better just buckle your seatbelt, because you know what happens with every leader who tries to lead? Opposition. Opposition. Leaders, if you want to be popular, you may not be a great leader. Leaders, if you're not willing to have people talk about you, you may not be ever a great leader. Because if you do something, there will always be people who get ticked off about people who do something. Because this is just the status of the world. There are so many people content with doing nothing. They just sit on their blessed assurance all day long and do nothing and be happy about it. But leaders, you better get ready. They'll shoot at you. You can still have a thick skin and a soft heart. Just because you have thick skin doesn't mean you have a hard heart. You can have thick skin and a soft heart. And it's a balance that you have to have. But they try to get Nehemiah to come down, and they try to discourage him, and they try to frustrate him, because discouragement and frustration, it goes along with leadership. It's just part of the resume. But Nehemiah, after he was attacked by, Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, and they just kept coming against him, and they were like, come down off that wall, come down off that wall. Stop this, let's talk. Here's what a leader says. He says, I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? Workaholic. Stay until the task is finished. I'm not coming down. I'm doing something good. Why would I stop leading now? Because that's what leaders do. They keep leading even when they have opposition. And because of Nehemiah, the leader, in 52 days, they built the wall. In 52 days. They started it and they finished it, led by Nehemiah. Because he organized, he administrated, he cast a vision, he pointed a problem, invited people to become part of the solution. Because when leaders do their part and invite others to do their part, because everybody's got a part, everyone goes further faster. Everybody goes further faster. When leaders do their part, and leaders have a part, but they're not the entire part. This is what goes wrong in church. When church folks want leaders to do it all, they want staff to do it all. They want the leadership to do it all. That's a terrible plan, because leaders have a part. But guess what? Everybody else has a part too. And when leaders do their part and they invite others to do their part, everybody benefits. Everybody wins. Everybody goes further faster. And so for those of you who are leaders, for those of you who are administrative types, and those of you who think long term, here's what I know about you. This is what I know about us. You fast forward to the end of your life, and towards the latter seasons of your life, there will be two questions. There will be two questions that you will wrestle with. And if you're going to wrestle with them now, you might as well wrestle with them. If you're going to wrestle with them then, you might as well wrestle with them now, right? What did I do? What could I have done? What did I do? What could I have done? What did I do? What could I have done? Leaders wrestle with that question all the time. All the time. And let me tell you, it's a double-edged sword. We started with just a few dozen people in this church. We'll have well over 1,000 today. I mean, that's incredible. That just doesn't happen everywhere. And in our part of the world, that never happens. I mean, this is so unique. This is such a move of God. This is so incredible. Let me tell you the danger of leading sometimes. You can get in your car and drive home at the end of the week, and you can say, have I done anything? Because if you don't manage your gift well, your gift will become an enemy against you. And it will convince you, what have I done? What have I done? Because that's going to be something you wrestle with. You're probably already wrestling with it now. What have I done? But then toward the end, you know what you're going to ask? What could I have done? Did I do everything that I could do? Did I seize every opportunity? Was I bold enough? Was I verbal enough? Did I risk enough? If you're going to wrestle with those questions eventually, you might as well wrestle with them now. And if you're a leader by God's design. What am I doing? What am I doing with this gift of leadership? What could I be doing? You're going to wrestle with it then. Go ahead and wrestle with it now and be the leader God wants you to be. See, a leader with a big burden who prays big prayers with big faith in a big God, that leader becomes the tipping point for something extraordinary. Would the Israelites ever left Egypt without a Moses? Would the Israelites ever crossed a Jordan without a Joshua? Would they have ever built a temple without a David or a Solomon? Would they have ever rebuilt the temple without a Zerubbabel? Would they have ever fallen back in worship to God without an Ezra? Would they have ever rebuilt walls without a Nehemiah? God always has a leader. And He's gifted you to be one of those leaders that take people from where they are to where they could be, where they should be, and where they want to be. Heavenly Father, for those of us that you've given us some capacity to lead, God, remind us that leaders lead. Leaders get tired and leaders get fatigued and they get frustrated and sometimes they get sidetracked, but God, help us be like Nehemiah and whatever wall you've put us upon. May we just say right along with Nehemiah that we are doing a great work and we will not come down. We are doing a great work and we will not come down. God, you have invested into us a gift to be able to lead people where you want to take them. So God, for those who have the capacity to be leaders, let us pursue that capacity so that we can partner with other gifts to make the church all that it can be, because without leaders, we are less than what we could be. So Father, give us a burden. God, help us to pray big prayers with big faith to a big God, and let us become the tipping point for something that's even more extraordinary than what we're currently a part of. In Jesus' name.